Good morning, everyone. My name is Rini Ledger with Shram. I added my married name. Um, Welcome to the Women's Coffee Club. We created this club to provide a safe space for women to share and inspire each other, and we're so grateful to have all of you here. But especially our presenter this morning, she'll be presenting a very important topic about diversity. It's neurodiversity acceptance. So with that, Suzanne, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided this topic, and then go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brittany. I so appreciate it. Yes, this is a very important topic. And I have come on a couple of times to talk about it in the past. And it's a fairly new topic for me. Just in the last 6 years, I just learned that I was autistic. I was diagnosed as autistic. Now, I always felt that I had been different all my life, but I always thought I was just different from my brothers. But then I came to know I was different from classmates and I was different from workmates and everything. And I said, what's going on? Why do I feel so different? Why am I acting so differently? What exactly is the situation? And so I went through a period of not being having challenges, getting hired, and all different challenges in my life. And I finally got to a point where things just every time I worked harder, things just fell apart more. So I joined the Brave Thinking Institute back in 2018, and about 2019, they one of the faculty members came up and said, I was noticing that you have some similarities to someone else I know. And do you know if you might be autistic? And I went, oh my gosh, is that why I felt so differently? Now, to many people, this is devastating. This is very challenging for them to get a diagnosis. For me, I was so euphoric because I finally had an explanation of who I was and why I was acting so differently. I could go from comparing myself to my brothers to being on a completely different tier of my own. And it allowed me to be accepting of my gifts. I was always great memory. I could had very strong photographic memory, had very strong visual memory, and as we know, a memory can go backwards and visualization can go forward. And that was just as strong as going backward. And that is one of my gifts is the visual acuity. I can look at something and almost completely memorize it in my head without having to keep looking at it. And that's my gift. So let me tell you, being a neurodiverse, as many people know, is not always an accepting being accepted in society. And the reason for that is because people have a general view of what they think autism should look like. First of all, they don't expect someone with autism to be able to come onto the computer and talk. They don't expect that. They expect someone to be cowered in the corner and maybe jumping up and down and nervous and everything. They don't expect that someone's able to get onto a screen and talk. Well, now communication is not one of my challenges. And I've had family members who say, you're not autistic, you can communicate really well. You read well, you do well in school, you can't be autistic. Well, what they don't understand is that someone can't look autistic. Although we can have a deer in headlights look about us, someone doesn't look autistic. It's how we process the world around us. Now, I can look at someone who's mumbling like this, and I can't understand them because they're not projecting. And that's called audio processing challenges. When I can look at someone and still not understand what they're saying because they're not projecting, then now that's one of the reasons why I like to project. Is because if I can't hear myself, how can I expect you to hear me? And so whatever I can hear, I know that you can hear. And so I'm very careful to speak out and project my voice so that you can hear me. So audio processing is probably my greatest challenge, but then also volume. that's around me can be hard. If I have too much noises around me, I get overwhelmed. And I have a hard time if too many voices are coming from too many different angles. I have no sense of where sound is coming from because it's all around me. And then flickering lights. I don't know how many people go to a concert and can deal with that strobing light, or with the police lights on their car, or any of these other flashing lights. Now, some autistics don't like any sunlight. I love the sunlight. I love being outside. But you see, we have all different traits. It's kind of like, as Temple Grandin says, the mixing board on a DJ. Some people are high, some people are low. Another challenge I have is interviews give me full anxiety because it's a competition issue. And I'll tell you about that more in my presentation. But competition and I are not best friends. I want to be known for my improvement from last year to this year. I don't want to be compared to everybody else. I think that that's probably the biggest thief in everybody's life is we're always comparing ourselves to the person next to us, or the person that we grew up with, or to the classmate that just got honor roll, or and it's like life shouldn't be about competition. And yet it is. And so with that, I'd like to go into my presentation. Okay. From the beginning, there we go. I would like to enlist all of you in being in the new age for humanitarian efforts. We are all different, wonderful women. We have all different characteristics and traits and gifts and everything. And I'd like to invite you to a new age in humanitarian efforts. All different minds coming together to celebrate and be welcomed. Everybody welcomed, everybody celebrated, because we are all unique. There's no, I almost even take offense at the neurodiverse versus neurotypical, because as I wrote down at the beginning, let's put an end to normal, to typical. Everyone is needed to make this world a better place. And the fact that there's a neurodiverse and a neurotypical, typical is not such a wonderful word because you're either this or you're that. Let's get away from this or that. Let's, as I show up on the screen, we're all wonderful colors. We're all wonderful gifts of women coming together to share what we have. And I'd like to enlist in you to come together for a humanitarian effort. And let me tell you more about that. Okay, my Aspie Bridge, as you see behind me, here is my bridge. And what I do is I have a podcast that I do every Tuesday that's on Eventbrite and also live streamed onto YouTube, where I talk about helping people who think they're in a state of victimhood because they're not accepted on the other side of the bridge. I help them to become stronger, to become more confident, to speak up. And as a matter of fact, you'll find that in 2 weeks on the 30th, our own Sandra Vox is going to be my very first guest on this podcast to help women learn how to get out of their little girl voices, get out of their timid voices, and learn how to speak up and deal with some of the things that they can do without masking. Very few times do I mask anymore. But I mask to control my emotions, not to please you or try to fit in. So while I'm serving my demographic of women who are late diagnosed, help society, there are so many other women out there that are struggling with bipolar, with ADHD, with schizophrenia isn't as often heard of. It's more the ADHD and the bipolar and some of the other neuro challenges that we might have. But there are so many people that have gone to society and have been treated as if they're outcasts, as they're not as good as. And it's my podcast that's trying to help these women create their strength and their confidence to come back into society where they can share their gifts. And you can help. I know you can. All right, I'm going to play a short little section on Temple Grandin, just so you can hear her philosophy on getting people that are neurodiverse back into society again. Let me know if you can hear it. If not, I may have to.
One of the things
Can you hear it?
cannot emphasize enough. You got little
Not
kids
yet. Okay, one
that
moment.
are not talking, doing a lot of strange behavior. Worst thing you can do with a 3-year-old that's not talking is to do nothing. Now, Colorado's better than a lot of
One
places.
moment.
I go to some place.
Suzanne, we can hear you.
Wait a year to get a diagnosis.
We can hear you, Suzanne.
It's free. Don't
You
wait.
can hear it?
Just
Yeah.
start with this kid. Teaching turn-taking games. That was taught to me with the Parcheesi board. Singing them nursery rhymes, doing words. But the worst thing you can do is let them sit in the corner.
You can go back to your share, Suzanne.
APL, they're the people that put the Mars rover on Mars. That's rocket science. The closest I got to that.
Okay, I'm going to move it up to the part I'd like you to hear.
Is it just audio, Suzanne? Or a
It's
video?
not an audio. Do you hear the audio?
Yes.
Another one I'll find over at a metal fabrication shop, or he's an old hippie my age that runs the maintenance shop at a major plant. You see, when I've talked to a cattle breeder in his mid-30s that I knows on the spectrum. See, this is what makes me crazy when I go across the silos, because I'm seeing too many of these smart kids, and we got a lot of these high-end Asperger kids that are fully verbal, 17, 21, a lot of those, and I'm hearing way too many. He's playing video games all day and he won't come out of the bedroom. Well, we've got to not let them do that. You know, one of the reasons why they do this is anxiety. When I was 15, I had a choice. I could go to my aunt's ranch for a week or all summer. Not going was not going to be a choice. Well, one place where my teachers drew an absolute line in the sand was I was not allowed to become a recluse in my room.
Okay. I want to just go back again and pull this up. All right. So I see you, Joey. Did you have a question, Joey?
No,
No, okay.
right.
I'm trying
Are
to
you
get back.
planning to share your screen, Suzanne?
Yeah, let me get out of sharing my screen again. There we go. Okay, so I do want to share, but I wanted to go on to the next one. Let people hear about see the rest of it. All right, so Bridge Builders. Many of you know about my Bridge Builders. Bridge Builders is an organization I have created such that people can come into it and with all their different levels of expertise can help an Aspie woman or a neurodiverse person to come back into society by helping them to become the human resources, to help them where they feel like they are not as successful because they need someone to show them the way or have their back or help them get an interview when someone won't see them. Whether or not you decide to become part of my Bridge Builders is not part of this today. I would love you to be. I'd love you to approach me if you want to become more of a volunteer to help the Aspie demographic. But I am asking you today to start to be just more aware of who's around you, who might need help, because whether or not you're a coach, you are needed. We're all here to open our eyes to see where other people can use our assistance, use our specialty. Mental health challenges are becoming more and more obvious. And I wonder if it has to do with the old adage that we came up across back in 2000 of look out for number one. And what that was all about is we were supposed to be taking care of ourselves, but helping others. Instead, it became a problem because people started to trample over each other to get to be number one. Two different ideas there. Is it trample everybody to become number one, or is it take care of yourself to become number one? And I think that's where some of the mental health challenges started, is because if you were being trampled and diminished and put down that so that someone else could rise above you, no wonder we have some of the challenges we're having. What I need to do is become more observant of each other, help each other, instead of it being what's in it for me, which goes back to the lookout for number one. What's in it for me if I stop and help you? What's in it for me if I take my time to serve you? Well, it's called human decency. It's called humanitarian effort to say, hey, I have the skills and I see you're having a problem. Now, one of the big things I want to say is we can't just barge in and help someone, because that's what I would call micromanaging. And I can tell you, micromanaging is assuming the person cannot handle a job and doing it for them. There's one simple thing you can do. It's just ask them, may I help you? So often people are afraid to ask for help. They'll sit there and they'll struggle because they don't know how to ask for help. Just like you, if you have a problem, are you willing to ask for help, or you're going to struggle through it? We have so many different skills in our life, so many different women with so many different skills. If you have something you can offer to someone, are you going to sit back and say it's not my problem? Well, that's not very humanitarian. We really need to say, hey, I know how to solve that. Now, as I say, let me just get back to my screen here first. We need to make sure that we're in a good place emotionally. That's not to say we have to be perfect. There's a big difference there. If we're not in a good place, we need to know when to ask for help. We need to make sure our cups are full. If our cups aren't full, what can we do to find someone who can help us? Rennie, when you said this a couple of months ago, you said, I'd like to have that help too. It brought up an idea that it's not just the neurodiverse society that needs us. Everybody needs everybody. Everybody has skills. We can't possibly think that we're going to solve all of our own problems. So yes, make sure your cup is full in order to help someone else. But if you don't have a full cup, ask for help. Don't be afraid. Hey, can someone help me over here? Because 9 times out of 10, I think you'll find that people are more than willing to help you. What's gotten in the way is competition. Competition, as I said earlier, is people want to be the best at it. It's like, well, there's a way to be helpful without being the best, or without coming across as being the expert. And I believe Aspies are going to be trendsetters, because we're going to be the ones that are humanitarian. We are going to say, okay, hey, this person needs help on creating a scrapbook. I can do that. Rennie, I know you like to help people with financial things. It's like we can help each other become better versions of ourselves by either asking for help or offering to help. And I think that if we can get this humanitarian effort going with just our small coffee group, and it will ripple out further and further to say, I'm not ashamed to ask for help anymore. I know that, Judy, you have a service that you can probably offer me and I can offer you. Let's start to take it one step further and say, we all have special gifts for a reason. If we're identical, It'd be a pretty boring world. What do you think? But I know we all have skills that we can offer each other. How can you help? Well, watch for people in your area of work or in the community and offer a service if you see someone who could use it. If you see someone in the community that needs an extra set of hands, carry the groceries. You know, it can be as easy as holding the door open, grabbing a bag of groceries from a cart to put in if it looks too heavy for someone, or help carry groceries into the house. There are so many different ways that you can be a humanitarian that people will be so appreciative of. Of course, as I say, you don't want to just barge in. You do want to say, may I help you? Asking that question takes away someone's feeling of not being capable of doing it for themselves. And that's very important. You don't want to just barge in and take over because someone's going to feel like you don't believe that they can do it. You want to empower them, but you don't want to have them struggle either. A third way, see a lonely person at a table in a restaurant or at a social event. Go and talk to them. Invite them over to your table. Find ways that you can look around your environment to see if someone might be lonely, if someone needs help. And the last thing is if you observe that someone always comes home from work, shuts the door, and doesn't get out, invite them to go for a walk. All of these ways are ways to bring people back together again, to say you matter. And I think that that's so important now, not just for the Aspen world, not just for the neurodiverse world. Everybody should take this humanitarian effort of saying, you know what, I have 5 minutes. Who can I help right now? And offer. Because it's not hard to go in and ask people when they need help. And at that, I'd like to ask if people want to go on to the Women's Coffee site and say, hey, I want everyone to know I did this today for someone else. Let's celebrate humanitarian efforts on the page and say, hey, I just want to let you guys know that today someone needed help. Or, I mean, that's not to give yourself a pat on the back, but I think if you can put out there what you've done, that might give someone an idea of to say, oh, wow, I can do that too. And it's not to brag, it's to give other people ideas on what can be done to help other people. And that's where I'd like to stop my presentation right now and see if we can come up with different ways that we can be more humanitarian in this world, because I think that so often competition, getting ahead, making the most money, they seem to be clouding everybody's way of helping each other anymore. And it's kind of like during one of my podcasts, hey, I'm looking for a guy who could help me buy a car. Do I have to pay him to help me buy a car or to see if an engine works well? Another situation this past Tuesday, I ran into technology issues. If you have a skill and you have about half an hour, can you share it? And at that, thank you very much for letting me talk today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Wow, that was great. You know, I feel guilty because I think all of us sometimes we're so busy with ourselves that we're not attuned to other people's needs. So I love this topic. Thank you, Suzanne. Let's open it up for Q&A. Let's start with Julie. Julie, what are your thoughts about this?
Can you just give me a minute, because Ava's here too, which she's just on a call. So I'll come in later. I think it's fantastic. I've got my comments to make.
Okay, we'll come back, Julie. Rada, I can't pronounce your name. Rada? Okay.
Rada. Yeah.
What are your
Thank you.
thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it's very interesting, Suzanne, and thank you for your presentation. Just very briefly, I want to mention I agree with everything you have said. When we moved to Sweden, my son, he had in his class an autistic child who always was left in the classroom when everybody was in during recess. And he started talking to him and he befriended him and he invited him home. When it was his birthday, he invited him, of course, along with the others. He came, but he was sitting separately in a different room. Apparently, because the noise it was annoying him. And actually, I took it forward with the school that the school has to do something about it. The reply was sometimes those children, they would like to be alone. And this is, I found it quite interesting because we don't know when we need to leave them alone and when do we need to invite them. And then I realized when he came on a play day with my son, so I was coming to call them for a fika, we call it like a cake in the afternoon. So they were sitting, each one reading a book, like not playing together, but they were fine, doing each one their own things. And I think it's important just to be next to each other. It's quite supportive and good enough. But it was interesting to know when, this the boundaries to.
The biggest thing is to just ask the questions. I mean, you'll find that when the questions are asked of anyone, specifically autistic children, hey, would you like to join in? At least now they have the choice of like, whoa, too loud, or yeah, I'd love to. And just asking that simple question or making that simple invitation allows them to say thank you or whatever, or too loud or whatever, but at least the attempt is made to include. Inclusivity is huge. That is making equal opportunities for everyone to feel comfortable. Thank you very much for your share. That's wonderful that your son did that. I am so proud of him.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great idea to ask. Sometimes we don't even think to do that. We just don't know and we don't do anything about it. So thank you for that. Judy,
I,
what are your
yeah,
thoughts?
I'm quite, okay, I could say I could come in now because it was
Okay,
just
let's
out.
go, Julie.
I
Okay,
love this
go ahead.
topic. I love this topic, Suzanne, really do, because I've been years and years supporting at school with, and my faves were Aspie's and anyway, they're all favourites. So, and I think what's asking questions is good, really, really good. And relating to the fact that, but you can also be a bit curious, because I am curious. I love the different ways of processing information. It's incredible, and collaboratively working, with people that you got the skill, you got this, and one of the most exciting times in my classroom were when they all came and then they said, well, I've got dyslexia, and then I had a boy on the A spectrum with absolutely only no ear on one side, not even the mechanism. And I mean, it was incredible. Wow. We used to, get really excited, and start to appreciate, and then they'd start to unpack how they learned. We'd have a special sort of process where we could unpack how you learned and what things you were good at and what you liked. And then they feel understood, and the faces changed, because they didn't want to even be there, and the noise factor is a huge thing. I think nearly all my students that I work with were hypersensitive hearing, really hypersensitive hearing and touch, and, also, so, but once that is communicated, then I think they pull themselves away because they just can't stand it and they can't be bothered talking about it. They're embarrassed about it. So to be curious and say, well, I mean, Ava and I were talking about this the other day because she's the same. She said, I'm fascinated with how we are all different, in various ways. And to sort of bridge that gap so that they can feel comfortable, because they shut themselves off for many reasons, as you know. And
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
my
We feel rejected, so we're not going to butt in,
absolutely.
but we
you
love
have
the
to,
invitation.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people think, well, autistic, oh, they don't feel, but they do. They feel very, very passionate about things. So, yeah, lovely, 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 lovely. And I
Thank
think
you.
we're living in a wonderful time where people are starting to begin to understand the learning diversity, you know, really, which is so absolutely wonderful. And I just to finish with this group, and they were about 11 or 12 or 13 kids, you know, 12, 13-year-olds. In the end, they couldn't wait to come to our classes, and they knew each other. And when we were talking about superpowers, and we'd say, well, what do you think your superpower is? And they'd say, I wouldn't have a clue. Well, you know, ask your friends. So we had this, and then they would share each other's superpowers, and the confidence that grew, you know, from that was absolutely brilliant. And they'd be dancing to come back, and they couldn't wait to come back, you know. So it really is a nice thing to do, but unfortunately it's still very, very stuck in many
It is.
situations.
And that's why I'm
And
doing my podcast, is just to
yeah,
get it out there
go
to let
girl.
people know.
Go girl, because you're with adults, which is great. You know, I recently looked after a little autistic boy that was absolutely on the spectrum, and his was hearing was the worst one, you know, hearing and balance. He used to love hanging upside down. So, you know, but his parents didn't even have a clue. Actually, they were a bit the same, but they still didn't understand. So, you know, even it's about time people began to understand, I think, don't you? Because it is a gift. And we need people like this, because you are so incredibly good at many things, you know, that are far beyond what anybody else can manage, you know. So we need people like this. Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Julie.
Okay.
Keep going on your work.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we don't know what to do with it. It's like almost like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with this? But like Suzanne said, just ask if they need. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the fact
Just
that
invite, just ask.
embarrasses us too, I think. You know, we feel embarrassed, we don't know what to do. And that's our problem, isn't it? Not the kids. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Judy.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Suzanne. This is wonderful. I love everything that you have said. And Julie, that person, that little boy that wanted to hang upside down, you cracked me up. That's hilarious. And it just makes me think of, I think a lot of us just want to hang upside down sometimes, but society won't let us do that, will we? Will they, whenever we're in adult age? But anyway,
years old in an infant class, you know, they still don't let them do it. They think it's crazy. It's actually proprioception. It's the proprioceptive system that does that. They want to hang upside down.
it's crazy in the best kind of way, I think. I'm just going to say I support it 100%. But anyway, one thing that I have been really focused on the last few years is recognizing the fact that so many times you think that you are the authority on a topic, and even though you might be, asking, becoming more of a person who asks more questions than you make statements, becomes so much more of a value to other people. And so you can become estranged from people because you're deflecting other people because they're not comfortable around you, because you're always making all these grand statements instead of including everybody. And I think that asking questions is more of an inclusive thing than anything else. So I resonate with everything that's been said so far, and it just gives me goosebumps. It's wonderful to be here in today's
Thank you. Thank you.
So
my number one key for helping people with communication before I became a neurodiverse coach, I was a positive supportive language. And my very first key to teaching people positive supportive language is turn your statement into a question, even if you know the answer. Even if you know the answer. And I sometimes will say this to parents. I'm like, I wonder whose turn it was to wash the dishes last night. Now you're taking the blame off of the person who you know was supposed to do it, and you're turning it more into a, I wonder who it was. This takes everyone off of the defensive and says, it was me. And now it's a fun game and it's a lot less stressful. A question releases the stress.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Suzanne. Sue, you're next.
Okay, first, Suzanne, thank you so much for presenting. I love what you're doing to support the neurodiverse community and beyond, so far beyond. It's amazing, just fantastic. Thank you for that. I am surrounded by neurodiverse people, and I have a couple of very high-end clients. They're mega millionaires. I mean, we're talking 100, 200,000 $1 million. I mean, it's crazy money. But they're both on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. They're just absolutely brilliant, and they've focused their ability to crunch numbers and run business at a level that has helped them be highly successful. But not only that, they're two of my all-time favorite clients. I just really enjoy sitting and having conversations with them and watching their brilliant minds work. It just inspires me. I'm just kind of in awe of both of them. And oddly, they just think I'm brilliant because I can come in and create a space that they can't visualize. But there's nothing brilliant about me. But these two are just like off the charts, and I really enjoy them. And then my best friend has twin autistic boys, and they communicate with iPads, so they're pretty severely impacted. But just watching and seeing what they can accomplish despite having pretty significant learning differences is super inspiring. And then last, my son's roommate is autistic, and he is a videographer and does great work, and he works full time. He pays his rent. He rents from my son, and he's just a great young man. We've known him since he was 12 and just adore him. So a lot of success stories is what I'm surrounded by for neurodiverse people that I have in my own life, and they inspire me. You inspire me, so just keep up the great work. I love it.
Thank you. You have to put them onto my podcast.
Oh yeah, you know what? Absolutely, that's a great idea.
I'll put the link in the Women's Coffee Hour, so if people want to join, it's 11 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Okay.
On
Thank
Tuesday.
you. Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, like even each of us is different, right? Like we're all different. So yeah, anyway, that was great. Great share, Sue. Carol, you're next.
Suzanne, that was a fascinating talk. And I love your message of celebrating diversity and extending that to neurodiversity. These are, really words to live by. Have the courage to share our gifts, asking how we can serve, and make sure that your cup is full and you are in a good place emotionally. Really great words to live by. I admire what you are doing and how you are serving. I admire your gifts. I wish I had the extraordinary capacity you have for visual acuity. That's awesome. And I know that you're putting that, you're sharing your gift and putting that to good in the world. And as far as, having as sharing your gifts, that is something that I'm going to start. I've been thinking about it. I'm going to start. I'm a yoga instructor, so I'm going to start doing some community free yoga in the park as soon as the weather gets better. That's what I'm going to be doing. And
Absolutely.
so anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk.
Oh, you're mute, Vinny.
Thank you, Carol. Sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize. Lachelle, you're next. What are your thoughts on this? Lachelle? Oh, she's in the meeting. Joey, we'll come back to Lachelle, I guess. Lachelle, we'll come back to you after Joey. Go ahead.
All right, so thanks, Suzanne. I love everything that you discussed. This reminds me of Temple Grandin. You watched the movie. She's just so amazing, and so are you. But I guess it was because she had a mom who fully supported her. And that's why she was able to really develop into her full potentials. And that's also why I'm so grateful that we did homeschooling with our kids. It was then that my husband and I realized that our kids are all different from each other. They have different personalities. And so we learned that our way of parenting shouldn't be the same for everyone. Our kids too, they have some kind of SPD, sensory processing disorder, but not medically diagnosed. There's no official diagnosis because here in the Philippines, so costly to go through that. But an occupational therapist, a friend of mine who's there in the US, when I brought my daughter there, she mentioned that my older daughter probably has SPD. So I Googled it and I found out that all those traits or behavior, they were descriptive of my mom. And I thought, but because, it wasn't, we're not really used to diagnosing these kinds of conditions at that time. So my mom never really had a chance to check, right? But I thought that if my daughter had SPD, when I Googled, everything, then our middle child, our son, would have SPD too. So we just dealt with it on our own. We did dry brushing, we massaged them. So, and we realized also that if we did traditional education in school, maybe 2 or 3 of my kids would be labeled slow or dumb because they take time to answer when you ask them questions, but they're really so smart and eloquent, right? They just have different style of learning and interest. So really grateful that we had the chance to homeschool them. We had a chance to stay at home and be with them as they grew up. So the world can really be cruel, but actually we all have our own disorders. Even normal people have disorders, we just don't know. And all we need is more understanding and love, and perhaps more knowledge on these topics, more movies like Temple Grandins or Rain Man, because they truly give so much light into this condition. Some people may not really be mean, they're just ignorant. So what you're doing is really great because you're making more people aware. And because of this, you're creating a more compassionate world. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the one thing I want to do is I want to erase the word disorder because we're all perfectly ordered. We're just challenged in different levels. So I'd love to erase the word disorder from any diagnosis because we're not disordered. God didn't make anyone disordered. He made everyone perfectly the way they're meant to be. And it's just, we are challenged in different areas, every one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, we are made differently. We are uniquely ourselves, aren't we? So let's go back to Lachelle. Can you talk now, Lachelle?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, but kind of not loud. Yeah.
Okay, just a second. Let me change microphones then. I'm having a microphone issue. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
So I love this and I'm super proud of Suzanne. I actually met her in 2018. So to see her growth since then is incredible. And it's interesting because as a second grader, there was a little girl that moved to our school that had Down syndrome, and nobody would play with her. And I was the kind of kid that actually became her friend. And so it's interesting. I've also realized probably about 10, maybe 12 years ago, actually it was 15 years ago, holy cow, I was asked to teach Sunday school at church, and I ended up with this room of, I think there was like 12 or no, there was 15 kids, and 3 of the kids had learning opportunities. And one of them, the mom actually came and told me her son had just been diagnosed with ADHD. Later, I realized that one of the other girls did, but her parents didn't diagnose. And one of the boys, this mom who had the son that had ADHD, she goes, I'm pretty sure he's Asperger's. And it was interesting because I'd read this book, Look Me in the Eye, and it was written by a person who was an Aspie. And what this mom said, that was not this little boy's mom, but a neighbor, she said, I think the father was just diagnosed in his 40s, and he was so embarrassed by the diagnosis, it was like he wanted to hide it from everyone. And the interesting thing, and why I think I'm so proud of Suzanne, is that she found an answer and she leaned into it and has gone, and she's going to go help other people to be able to see that some of the issues that might be going on in their life. So I'm just super proud of you, and I really appreciate that. And it's interesting too, because one of my nephews, his best friend, he has pretty severe Asperger's. And so it was interesting to see him from the time he was a little boy to now he's 24. And it was interesting because when he hit 14, the differences started showing up even more and even more and even more. And so what I've learned too is that because of the whole spectrum, different kids have different reactions. And even children, like I have a friend whose son bounces, which is another thing. And even as a teenager, he's still bouncing. So it's interesting to be aware of a lot of the things. One of the things I realized during COVID, I'm an accountant by trade, and that's my zone of excellence. It's not my zone of genius. But I realized that I work with a lot of people who are probably on the spectrum. And so I have, it's interesting. I've realized that a lot of them have really odd social behaviors, and knowing that. And so what I've also realized too is a lot of engineers have this too. And so it's because they process information differently. And that's why they're really good at their job. And so it's embracing and understanding and knowing, no, they're not trying to be offensive to you by ignoring you or not looking you. It's like that's what they're doing because of the way that they are wired. And so everyone has a beautiful brain. And so I just love that. Thank you, Suzanne, for bringing this to light and for allowing a discussion.
Michelle, you had heard my speech at my sermon at Inventing with the Infinite. And I mean, from that day on, I just took off.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Michelle. Jasmine, can you speak, or are you?
I sure can.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you guys for including me in this community. Thank you, Suzanne. This is my first time being able to be a part, and I'm looking forward to many more meetings like this. Suzanne, like everybody has said, this was awesome. It was great. It's exactly what I needed. This year, I have really been coming into alignment with myself and my community, and really wanting to spread that notion with other folks that we need our community, we need our village. It doesn't take a village to raise a child, it takes a village to live. And we all need to get back to being able to help everyone, because you can't. I dropped my phone. You can't live and you can't survive by yourself. And it's especially, the folks that operate, we say different, like you said. I really like the word different because it makes you feel like you're not what you're supposed to be. But it's amazing for us to, and for you to give us the tools on how to approach different people and how to get out of ourselves, and know that we do all have something to offer, and to see you being able to excel in what you do, having the background and the things that you have challenged and faced. through your life, it's helpful for me. And I have a nephew that is on the spectrum, and he's young. So, but just to see the growth that he's had from a baby until now he's 9, and to be able to embrace that, because at first we were afraid because we didn't know. There wasn't anyone necessarily in our family that we had this experience with before, and so we didn't know how to go about it. And you don't want to feel like, oh, he's being stigmatized and he's being labeled, but no, it is an answer to a question. And so it's on you to decide how you will carry that out, and what you will do with that information. And so it helps, and it's very helpful to hear about folks that are doing everything that they want to do and things that they probably never imagined, and you don't have to feel like that's something that's going to hold them back. So I appreciate what you have. I'm going to definitely share the podcast information with my sister, his mother. I just shared that book that you mentioned, Lachelle, that you read. I think that would be great for her, just to be able to have some hope, and folks that you can relate to, and to see, that things are different because people didn't talk about it. But more people are, more conversations are being had. So I really appreciate what you do, and your vulnerability, that, you're allowing yourself to be open to people and to spaces that might not have always welcomed you, and folks that are like you. So I appreciate you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my bridge is a two-way street. It's not only to help the ASPE individual, the neurodiverse person, approach me to help me. I call myself a torchbearer because I have walked the experiences. I help them to go over, but I also am serving the society side of helping them to understand how to react to us, how to approach us. And I think it's a two-way bridge. It's not one way. We have to meet in the middle, and that's been my bridge concept from the very beginning. Is let's not have two sides of the bridge. Let's connect them. Let's connect this world back together again.
Yes, beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, it's a lot more than we know. It's like we just so unaware. We're so ignorant about this topic. So I appreciate you bringing this up, Suzanne, to this group. Faith, you're next. Are you there, Faith? Faith?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to say I think Suzanne's very brave, and a lot of times people with autism have a hard time communicating. So she has overcome a lot, probably. And some ways, I think people who are on the spectrum might have a harder time than people who are just full out. You can see it easily because they perhaps think that you have to be having it more together than you might actually have it together. So she must be very brave and courageous. I think all of us have something different. So I'll end with something funny. My grandfather used to tell us, this old timer saying, something is weird about everybody except me and thee. And sometimes I wonder about thee. We all have something going on. And very often, most of us suffer with it in silence. And there's a lot of people who are rejected or not accepted or included. And Suzanne's right. If you notice someone who is not included or is alone or needs some help, ask. Sometimes just spending time with somebody or letting them give you a hug can make all the difference. So like to thank her for pointing that out and for the presentation.
Thank you, Faith. I so appreciate your words.
Yeah, thank you, Faith. What you said was so true. This is really not just for autistic individuals. It's really for everyone. All of us are different. So with that, Suzanne, I think everyone have had a turn here. So I'm going to send it back to you for closing words. It's been such a wonderful presentation and topic to create an awareness. And as you can see, everyone have had something in their lives that you know, it's in other words, it's more prevalent than we realize. It's there. It's everywhere, including ourselves.
Yeah.
So Suzanne, go ahead, take it.
Well, I think as I said earlier, I do find myself a trendsetter because I am maybe one of the first to feel comfortable, although Temple Grandin's very proud of herself too. If we can allow ourselves to be proud for all different abilities, and being humanitarian doesn't require anyone to be neurodiverse or neurotypical. We are who we are, and we can love each other enough to take a few moments to share our skills with each other. What a great place this world will become if we're not solely focused on ourselves anymore. I think we're the trendsetters in saying it's not about us, it's about everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for your presentation. I see that Julie and Ava, their hands up. So do you want to say
Hang on.
something, Julie and Ava?
She's
Yeah.
going to say she's lost her voice.
I have lost my voice, so
Oh, no.
but I love what you've been doing, Suzanne. Absolutely love it to bits. So thank you so much. In fact, you said something about about podcast. You have a podcast?
I'm sorry?
Can you
Podcast.
Podcast, yes. I have a podcast at 11 a.m. every Tuesday in Texas, which is Central Time. 11 Central every Tuesday. I go over different topics, and I have different, starting the 30th with our own Sandra Vox, who comes to Women's Coffee Hour. I have different discussions on how to make the Aspen woman or man feel more comfortable in society by having their back.
Yeah, Suzanne will post the information on the women's chat group. So
I will see you tonight.
Yes,
Suzanne.
I'll be there, Emma.
I won't be able to speak either.
That's okay. Your presence will be good.
thank you all. It's 8:01 right now. So thank you
It's not.
What did you say, Julie?
Oh, I just being silly. I was just saying I'd like to say it's a blessing that Ava's lost her voice, but it's not. Okay.
Thank you everyone for joining us here this morning and being part of this important conversation. And Suzanne, thank you again. And next week, Carol Curtella, she just left, will be speaking about health and vitality, the key to peace and prosperity. So please come and join us again. Have a great week, have a great weekend, and see you next week. Thank you again, all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.